I'm Charlie Pellett, and you're listening to Bloomberg New York. A look at some of the stories making headlines in the metropolitan areas. But first, we begin with the state of housing in New York. In a report released today, Senator Chuck Schumer said as many as 60,000 apartments in the city are in danger of falling into disrepair and bankruptcy. He blames that on so-called shoddy lending practices. Dina Levy is Director of Policy for the Urban-Homesteading Assistance Board, a housing advocacy group that's working with Senator Schumer.
Mostly what we've seen is this trend of predatory equity developers acquiring formerly Mitchell-Lama buildings, which was a state subsidy program that was geared towards, middle-income families. We've seen a lot of acquisitions of the project-based Section 8 stock, which is a federal program that serves very low-income families. And then we've seen a tremendous number of rent-regulated buildings acquired by these developers. So knowing which buildings are getting targeted has been fairly easy. The universe of what's at risk now is a little harder to get at because it takes an incredible amount of financial analysis to figure out exactly how much trouble some of these buildings are in. And some of that is also further complicated by lack of access to information. But what we've been able to piece together, a coalition of advocates who've been working on this issue, is at a minimum a universe of about 60,000 units, about 500 buildings, that we think are potentially over-leveraged and therefore at risk.
What's the role, then, of banks, either on the way up or on the way down? But no one was complaining when banks were lending money.
Well, we were. Those of us who were watching these deals happen were very concerned about why banks were doing these sort of what we now would definitely classify as irresponsible underwriting. What we quickly came to learn was that, much like in the single-family arena, the banks were willing to take on this risk because they were able to shed it in large part through selling the mortgages as securities or as mortgage-backed securities. So I think that was fueling this, right, that everybody was able to continue to shed their risk, leaving pretty much the tenants to hold the bag. So I think banks are very culpable for taking part in this, and I think they're also going to have to be part of the solution in terms of unwinding some of this. We're going to need banks to come to the table and to sit down with elected officials and residents and advocates and help figure out how to untangle these things from what seems to be extreme over-leveraging.
Are there any quick, easy solutions in your view? Second of all, what sorts of things would you like to see happen?
Yeah, the first, the easiest is probably what Senator Schumer led off with today, and we're very grateful for his leadership on this, and that is a call to the regulators, to the bank regulators, to implement sound underwriting standards or a guidance on what sound underwriting standards would look like. And so I think that will help do two things. One is it will stop predatory equity deals from going forward. So, stop these deals from continuing to happen. The second thing it will help do is guide the banks in terms of loan modifications, which we think are invariably going to be a big part of the solution here. So buildings that have become substantially over-leveraged are going to have to probably endure some write-downs, and as they're reconfiguring the loan amounts, we're going to want to make sure that the banks are now doing it in a way that anybody looking at this would consider to be responsible.
Dina Levy of the Urban-Homesteading Assistance Board. Bloomberg, New York.